and again down in 2015 to around 1% due to the diminishing oil prices. Iran, with an area of over 1.6 million square kilometers, truly rich in natural resources, and surrounded by 15 neighbors, some of them landlocked, continues to be of particular geostrategic significance. It is a lucrative trade and transit route in north-south and east-west corridors. A major engine of economic growth is Iran's population, which is large, young, and educated. Of Iran's 78 million population, 70% are under the age of 30. Around 85% are literate. The Human Development Index, HDI, value of Iran puts the country in the high human development category with an HDI annual growth of over double the global average. In 2015, the estimated GDP of Iran was 400 billion US dollars. Iran's short-term foreign debts are around only 480 million US dollars, and its long-term external debts around 4.75 billion US dollars. Very low indeed. IMF estimates brighter prospects for Iran's economy in 2016 and 17. Higher oil production, low costs of trade and financial transactions, and restored access to foreign assets are expected to lift real GDP to about 4 to 5.5% next year. The government is now keen to continue with its ambitious economic development agenda. Our sixth five-year development plan for 2017 to 2022 projects economic growth rate of 8%, very ambitious. Reforms in state-owned enterprises, financial and banking sectors, supporting private sector, and management of oil revenues are major priorities. Iran is set to increase its economic interactions with the outside world and looks for 30 to 50 billion US dollars annual foreign investment. Government is actively for providing an enabling environment to attract foreign investment, transfer of technology and know-how, as well as trade. Following many exploratory delegations to Iran prior to the implementation day of the nuclear agreement, Tehran continues to host impressive number of delegations, high-level delegations, mostly from Europe. President Rouhani's official visits to Italy and France were indicative of how relations can improve in just 4 months since the nuclear agreement. On 16th April 2016, the EU Foreign Policy Chief, with her college of 7 commissioners, the highest-ranking EU delegation in years to another country, visited Iran. A joint statement with 3 attached documents on energy, nuclear energy, as well as science and technology cooperation were adopted during the visit. The joint statement focuses inter alia on energy, trade, industry, agriculture, tourism, and etc. The document set a general framework for Iran-EU cooperation for the years to come. Tehran and Brussels are now elaborating ways and means of implementing those documents. Another EU delegation will soon depart for Tehran. Just this week, I personally met EU commissioners on agriculture, energy and climate change, as well as head of the cabinet of the Commissioner for Internal Market and SMEs. These go very well with the EU Foreign Policy Chief's statement in Tehran, where she said that a new chapter in EU-Iran relations has been opened. We shared her appraisal. Irrespective of all these positive developments, we still face challenges that constrain improved business with Iran, a matter of concern to both European and Iranian business partners that are eager to cooperate and invest. There are insensible attempts in our region and beyond in some transatlantic circles to push things back to the pre-nuclear agreement era. Hesitation of bigger international banks to engage with Iran, mostly because of the US fines handed down in recent years to such banks, for different reasons is a challenge. Failure by major European banks to support business with Iran has already provoked reactions within Europe itself. The EU foreign policy chief has pledged the bloc is trying to reassure that the banks should re-engage with Iran. Recently, following intense consultations, a joint statement was issued by the European Union and the United States, reassuring major banks to work with Iran. To soothe concerns, European banks had already been issued with EU guidelines. In early March, the UK Prime Minister rebuked Barclays for hampering companies trying to work with Iran. He said Barclays appeared to be operating, and I quote, in opposition to the policy of the UK government, end of quote. Airbus, which sealed an agreement with Iran in January to sell 118 new planes, called on European banks to dispel fears of doing business with Iran. Good to see that pressure is heightening this way. The same parties to the nuclear agreement should now try to uphold it. Undermining JCPOA, that's the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the nuclear agreement, is no option. We all have a common responsibility to discharge. Iran has fully discharged its commitments under the JCPOA, even ahead of schedule. Everybody was anticipating somewhere around May or June, but we did it in January. The Iranian nation expects real and on-the-ground commitment to reciprocity. The intertwined machinery of sanctions might require reasonable time to unfold. Fine. What we cannot accept is that for some parties, the agreement remains on paper. Not a fair and viable equation, of course. Good news is that things are moving and we expect more to come. Small and medium-sized European banks have already started handling transactions on behalf of their clients with Iran. But colleagues, driven by our huge potentials, we in Iran and Europe are all positively ambitious. Not fast enough. This is still far from meeting high expectations of the European companies that are eager, on the basis of their own real assessment, to find their niche in the Iranian market, and indeed, far from our anticipation in Iran. Director Wolf, let me stop here and reiterate that we are ambitious, we continue to be ambitious, in firmly believing that necessary ground for expansion of economic ties between Iran and Europe is already set, and Iran and Europe together have a lot to win. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think we can now move directly to the first session, where we will first hear 3 presentations, and then we will have time for also questions and answers from the audience, from all the participants. And I think some of the questions can also be addressed to you, of course, Ambassador. So perhaps I move directly to... I will start. You will start?
Yes.
Okay, to Farhad.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here, and I'm not telling that as a standard sentence to begin the speech. I've been traveling with Dr. Zarif, so I cut short the trip to attend this meeting, and I'm very glad that I've done it. I think it's very important to address Iran cooperation with the scholarly depth and to think about it strategically. And my dear colleague here, Ms. Jazairi, will have a presentation on the banking She's coming from the private banking sector. She will address some of the issues that's on the ground and for the start of the things. And I will add some comments at the end about the root of the problem as I see it. And then I guess we can have, you can ask all your questions. I'm not sure I can answer all of them, but I'll try. Okay. So as you can see, I would start with introducing Iran as your partner for regional growth and development. And by that, what I mean is that we strongly believe that we have a regional role to play, and for that, we are seeking help. And we think if we can do that, we can stabilize that part of the world, and with the peace and prosperity in that part, all the world, especially Europe, will benefit. So how do we change that? Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry, let me.
There. Oh, okay, there.
Sorry.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So I will start with talking about Iran. I will give you some brief information about Iran, and then I'll talk about opportunities as I see it, and then I'll make my recommendation. Oops. Okay. To start, we think Iran is located in a very strategic location, and I will get to that in more details in the second slide. Our population was 78.8. We have passed 80 million just a few weeks ago, and we have access to a great population. It's Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, CIS landlocked countries, Russia, Turkey, and so it provides a big market for the access of European companies. And I think we have the best security in the region to establish a business there. There are also other reasons that I will, okay. It takes time to learn this, but I'll manage, don't worry. And this is the picture that I want you to really focus on. This is our plan. We are trying to be a regional hub for the transportation. We are trying to establish south to north railroads. And the importance of it is that you don't need to take pictures. I think you can have my presentation from here.
Yeah, we will. If you agree, we will put the presentations
Sure,
on the website of the event. Yeah.
Sure, okay. Sure. Please do. And so from south to north, there are two ports down there. One is Chabahar, which is developing. This is of interest to India. So India can reach that and send its products to Afghanistan and to the CIS countries. And the interesting thing about it is that when you look at India, when it wants to send the material, for example, to send to Georgia or Turkmenistan, it has to take a very far marine way. It takes about 40 days or so. And India and CIS has $13 billion of trade. And if we establish that relation, it will really increase the trade between India and the CIS countries. It will reduce the time almost half and reduce the cost, so will help India to export. And as you know, India is one of the major pusher for the economic growth of the world. So that's one, and it will connect it to Afghanistan. We have recently had an agreement with Afghanistan. Afghanistan has a lot of mines, so they can send their mining products to India and get products from there. And from east to west, there are these economic corridors that China is pushing, and that's one of them. China is trying to have access to Europe. China has already access through the shipping line and airlines. But airlines are very quick, but they are also very expensive. Shipping lines are much cheaper, but they are very slow. So railroad just gives them some option to have some intermediate ones. So it will really help them to increase the trade for certain products. They are planning some dry ports there to improve the logistic and will be part of the plan. And the way that we are thinking about these railroad stuff is that we are thinking about it as economic corridors. So to establish some industrial zones there, so increase the value over there. So I think this is really important. And we have talked with the many Europeans that, for example, if you want to do something in Iraq and you don't want to send your people, or people can do that, we just need to define that cooperation. So this is the way that we look at our role in the region.
Perhaps let me operate it.
Sure. Oh, okay.
It's the wrong direction.
It's not me only. No, no, one. No, okay, you're going. Okay. In this slide, you see that we have very young and population. So the people between 19 to 29 consist about 32% of the population. These are people who are ready, they are young, they are looking for jobs. And if you go to the next one, that's okay. They are very well educated. We have many engineering and social science students, both male and female, and they are looking for a job and they are talented, and probably you have many of them even in Europe. You are familiar with Iranian students, so it's not something. For engineering graduates, we are probably the first in the world per capita, so we are producing a lot of engineers. They definitely need some training to be able to work for the companies, because the way that our education system works, it just gives them some general thing. They are good in theory. They need some trainings, but they are ready to go. Okay. That's okay. We'll manage. And about infrastructure, there are 2 points about it. We have good infrastructure, but there is also a lot of room for developing it. So if you think about investment, you can do both. For example, when we go for the internet users, there are about 47 million of it. And as I said, we have 80 million people. So if you want to invest in expanding internet, you can do. If you want to use internet as a media for providing services, that's always that you can do. We also have a good developed infrastructure and institution in the banking. There are a lot of ATMs, and as you can see there, there is about 670 million transaction for POS. So the country is familiar with the technology. I can say it's even technology hungry. So those people are ready to use that, those mobile banking or mobile services. We have about 99 airports. This is many, and we don't use all of them, obviously, and this is something that you can invest. I mean, it doesn't have to be for civil aviation, it can be for leisure and entertainment. So this is something. We have 94% penetration of mobile. Almost half of it are smart mobiles. And there are information about rails and roads. And again, my point is that these are good, but they can be better, so you can invest there, okay? But when we talk about Iranian economy, what occurs to the mind is mostly in oil and gas and energy-directed country. But because of the sanctions and because of the low oil prices, the economy has been diversified. So when you look at the numbers, oil and gas contribution has reduced to 23%, and when you look at real estate and, for example, wholesale retail trade, it will when you add them together, would be 25%. So it creates a lot of opportunity for the Europeans to get engaged with different part of our economy. Go. That 3% growth rate was for 2014. We just put it there because it looks good, but 2015 wasn't that good. I think it was roughly 0. And I'm not sure about, well, there are predictions from 4 to 6% for this year, but it's going up and down. This is a snapshot for trade. Again, that's for 2014. There is a lot of trade with Chinese, and there are some trade with UAE. Well, UAE basically represent what we do with the rest of the world. So it's probably some of the things that we do with Europe or others. But it shows a lot of opportunity for changing this trade map. Okay. That gas R over P, what we mean by that is the reserves over production. So what you see is that we have perhaps the highest number there. When you consider our production and compare it with the reservoir that we have, it's the highest. So it means that we'll be the best to make the investment there. Same goes for the oil. We are fourth in reservoirs in oil and first in gas. And then let's go to the next one. And for that, what I mean is that it's not only important to invest in that, it's also important if you want to make some production lines to invest it somewhere that you're not worried much about the energy. I think this is very clear in Europe that when people get in fight, then you get cold winter here. So it's really important to have your factories running with the energy available. One more interesting thing is a reliable and cost-efficient energy networks that we have. We are probably one of the very few countries that we have two separate energy networks. We have gas pipelines, we also have electricity lines. So this really provides a reliable source of energy. We haven't had electricity blackout in the last 14 years. Well, touch the wood, but this is really something. And
Indeed.
okay.
Can I continue?
Sure, go ahead. Okay, these are the things that I want to tell you, that these are the way that we are thinking. And I think it's really important for you to think about that, comment on that, and let us know if we need to correct some of them, or you can give some solution to go for it. First of all, we are thinking about and we are acting upon to join WTO. So this is the picture that we have in mind. It's been expressed by the government, and by that, what we think about, the main issue there is that to create competitive industries, and that to be globally competitive. So we are not looking at something to become artificially competitive by the government subsidiary. So this is the vision, and this is the way that we're looking at it. So we want to go towards shaping globally competitive businesses. The second issue that we have on our mind is increasing energy efficiency, because we have been heavily subsidized for energy. So we need to think about that, and in different sectors. Starting from the energy production, we need more efficient way of doing that, distribution and consumption. There are a lot of opportunities in every aspect of it. We are also thinking about increasing export, trade, and transit with neighbors. So there is no import replacement policy. It's just that go for export and import something, add some value to it, and export it. So this is the kind of mentality that we are looking at. And even the transit itself. As I mentioned in that slide, if we can help India work with Afghanistan, that's fine. If we can add something to it, that would be even better. One major asset is increased awareness to the environment, air, water, and soil, and this is really something. I think the society is aware of that, the government is pushing for it, and this is something right. and this is really an essential part that we want to move towards sustainable goals set by the United Nations. One interesting portion of our economy, which goes back to that young talents, is attention to innovation and knowledge-based economy. We have great pool of talents in Iran. Europeans who have come and met with the universities there, they have seen that there are many young and educated people with great ideas. And the government is paying attention. It's actually under the president. There's a vice president, Mr. Sattari, who takes care of that. I think the future is that to take that away from the government and start in the private sector. But the private sector is too weak to engage in the venture capital stuff. It's not that educated, not that work. But it has started from the government side. But it's growing, and it's growing fast. And this is really something that we can work on that. The other issue is that industry development based on regional, industrial, and consumer needs and markets. So what I mean by that is that when we're talking about pipelines, instead of buying pipe, we would like to have a plant to produce pipes. Or when we're thinking about buying pumps, we like to have a plant there to produce pumps. So this is the way that we think that we need to engage in the industrial development. One major area is developing and deploying new financial tools. This is really important. It's because it used to be government money. Government was pushing the development with the oil money. There is no more. And it has set the development task for the private sector, and private sector has to find ways to obtain that money from the money markets. So there is a huge opportunity there to find those new financial tools and to deploy them there. I know that you are a little bit tired, so I'll skip the last one, go to the next slide. Sorry about that. This is the part that I want to tell you as the Iranian Chamber of Commerce mission and vision. It's that we strongly believe that we are the one to take the role for the development of the country, and we are thinking about that to work as a socially responsible private sector, not only about the environment, but also about the consumer, and this is, we think, is the way to go. We also feel strongly that we have a role to play in the regional development. We think our EPC contractors working with foreigners can go to Iraq to develop that country or work in Pakistan. With Pakistan, we have borders that are very porous. And this is a region that's been hit by war and terrorism. And this war really feeds terrorism. And terrorism is a lifestyle there. People go for the terrorism because they cannot feed their family. And terrorism is a business model. They have their own way of making money. It's through smuggling the goods and legal products or illegal like narcotics, taking hostage and getting donation. It's just a business there. And there are people that going there because they want to feed their family. And our mission there is that to establish industrial zones. We have talked with the Pakistanis, we have talked with many, that we need to establish some economic zones in the Iran and Pakistan border. We provide the people, we provide the energy, and they can provide, for example, Pakistan is the 5th producer of milk. Afghanistan can do a lot in the agriculture. And if we can get the people to have decent jobs, we can reduce the problem a lot. And this is a very important issue to think about. Next. So about Iran, our recommendations is that you can invest in talents, the venture capital, startups. You can invest in projects that are well-defined public-private partnership projects in railroads or other places. There are also a lot of incomplete projects that we think if Europeans can make investment, they can really get good return in a really short time. We think there are many companies that have been hit by the downturn of economy, so people can invest in those companies. It can be simple investment in cash and cash flow. They can invest in the management, or they can invest in the technology, and they can start exporting from there. They can export from there to Russia, to the other places just around the market that we talked about. Next, please. Just take it.
Even higher?
Yeah, I guess. Oh, we'll manage. Okay. Our stock market has improved a lot. It's compliant with many international standards, and I think it's really worth looking at it. So you can, that's one way of engaging with the Iranian economy. So, and I advise you to invest in, European companies in partnership to market your products or services, after sales support for having a very long-lasting relation, to produce your products, which is obvious, and design your products. I think when you're thinking about that industrial 4 mentality that's started with Germany and others here, you need to be very close to the market to understand them and to be creative. And that's something that we can help. Well, last slide is for you to laugh. Not much, though. Mm-hmm. So we advise the people to explore that new spaces for their business. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for bearing me that long. Thanks a lot.
So we now turn to the second intervention by Zara Yatsayeri. Thank you. Jaza Yatsayeri. Thank you very much.
You don't pronounce J.
I'm very sorry for my...
I'll do it for you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to express my gratitude and appreciation for this event. In this era, I want to start banking in Iran by introducing CBI, Central Bank of Iran. Okay. Banking Iran is banking system in Iran is based on Islamic usury free basis. It means that by sharing profit and loss, and banks invest by sharing profit and loss, and Islamic banking in Iran system based on the principles of law, Islamic law, also known Sharia, and guided by Islamic economics. Central Bank of Iran, CBI, was established in 1960 and have major duties such as maintenance of the value of national currency, riyal, and balance of payments, facilitating trade transactions, contributing to the economy advancement of the country, laying and implementing monetary and credit policies of the country, intermediating and supervising export and import, supervising and issuing permits for foreign investment in Iran, supervising FX operations of banks, including LCs, LGs, and so on. These are the main duties of CBI.
The other button.
No. Okay. The creation of Iranian private banks started from 1994. And these banks authorized by CBI to start work besides governmental banks. As you see, first column is governmental banks in Iran, and the next one is private banks in Iran. Establishment of foreign authorized banks in free trade zones started in 1998, and some banks, before sanctions, some banks, as Standard Charter, EIH, Future Bank had branches in free trade zones in Iran, and other banks like United Bank Pakistan, Halk Bank Turkey, Ziraat Bank, and so on have representative offices in Tehran. After sanctions removed, some of them became operational and reactivated, and some are still not active because of the situation that we have after sanctions removed. According to Reuters, Iranian banks' assets totaled equally 523 billion as of March 2014. Following development of capital markets in Iran, some banks, by offering their shares in stock exchange, changed from state-owned enterprises to private banks, such as Tijarat Bank and Bank Millat Bank. All Iranian banks are working under international regulatory frameworks for banks and observing MAL and CFD counter-financing terrorism policies. All banks are observe also KYC, and they check all the customs and beneficiary and control them not to be in the SDN list. This is very important, I think, for European partners. And I want to assure them that all the banks in Iran, under supervision of CBI, Central Bank of Iran, they all obeyed all the rules and regulations, international regulations, and all the limitations, and they meet all the requirements when they, I emphasis on this, because in their partnership with Iranian entities, they are very, maybe they are willing also, but maybe this is the point that they take under consideration because of these policies. But surely we consider them as like any other countries. As you see in this slide, electronic transactions increased by 1.8% and 70.1% in terms of number and value, respectively. And we have percentage growth, as you see in this slide, for bank cards, ATM, POS, PIN pads also. And we have a growth in issuing banking, banking cards, debit cards, prepaid or gift cards, and credit cards. And this is the volume issued, as you see in this slide. Regarding mechanizations, banking activities and operations are moving toward mechanizations. To facilitate and expedite activities, lots of systems are developed in banking system, which these are the most important of all. These are by CBR's considerations, checks, image transfer and clearance, which is called Checkovac. It is a system. Bank-wide standard e-check issuance, SAYAD, credit control and oversight central, which is called as MACNA, operation of information security management system as NAMAD, and Asian Clearing Union messaging system. As you see here, there is a good infrastructure in these issues, and we have a good technical infrastructures for controlling and supervision, which is directly under supervision of CBI. According to CBI's report, liquidity amounted to 823.8 trillion in March 2015, which shows 22.3% growth compared with March 2014. Comparing the liquidity growth in this year with the 38.8% liquidity growth in 2013-2014 is indicative of 16.5% points decrease. According to CAMEL's rating criteria, which is a rating system. According to CBS report, Camel's rating criteria, which is the rating system originally developed in the U.S. to classify banks' overall conditions, shows under these items capital adequacy, asset quality, management, profitability, liquidity, and sensitivity to market risk, which is totally 100%. You can see banks' overall condition, I'm in private banking, in Iran as rating like this. First bank Pasargad, Day Bank, Gardeshgari Bank, and Hekmat Iranian Bank, which is I came from Hekmat Iranian Bank, and finally, which is the upper mediate level, as it is a middle-sized bank, but it's placed in this column. You see, it's not in a bad, it's good. And Postbank Iran is the last one in this rating. Also, in year 2014 to 15, we have 2,420.4 million shares of organization, public companies, and banks growth, and banks worth nearly, which is over 315 million. I think the main important thing that we are encountered as the after sanctions removed and after signing JCPOA is developing correspondent banking. As an exporter and importer, this is the main for the exporters and importers, and for the people who are engaging with banks, this is the main and essential problem that we are encountered with. Because as a banker, we see that the willingness of the European countries and European banks to have a corresponding relationship with Iranian banks. Unfortunately, there is some considerations, and for example, the first and beginning step for having corresponding relationship with banks is changing RMA for relationships. But actually, they are not so willing and take some consideration. And I mean prime banks. We have corresponding relationships with some banks after JCPOA signed. But actually, the prime banks are not going to involve in this case. As Mr. Sharif told, as he mentioned, we will discuss it after the session. And because it's very important, if there is no banking relationships, no money can be, no transactions can be done. And if it was not possible, so no trade can be happened between Iranian traders and European traders actually. And after signing JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, banking relationships are getting improved, but still some European banks, as I told you, does not show any interest, which is obviously, it is mentioned in their SWIFT messages that we do not have any policy. This is the same statement that they mentioned. They do not have any policy for the time being, and we do not need to expand our corresponding relationships with Iranian banks. This is the major problem for us. As you see in this slide of price trends, also this is the situation of price trends. And in this slide, as my colleague Mr. Sharif mentioned, the situation of Iran in the world. We are the second largest actually economy in the MENA region, and also second largest population, second in the world in natural gas reserves, and also fourth in crude oil reserves. We have increase in job opportunities, and also tax revenues increased by 43.6%, and we have increase in manufacturing and mining also. This is the most important question, why invest in Iran? And I added these items to Mr. Sharif's speech. We have investment incentives and advantages for investment in trade, industrial free zones, such as for industrial free zones, economic zones, special economic zones. One is tax exemptions for 20 years, but that is very important. And the second is a freedom of entry and exit of capital and profits. The next item is social securities for employers. It is possible also. Exemption of customers' duties in transferring part of manufacturing goods to mainland. Exemption of customs and duties for importing and exporting to zones. And also talented Iranian skilled manpower. And also possibility of utilization of low-cost raw materials, oil, gas for all industries and activities. Also, we have Iranian government, supportive government policies. Iranian government has got several supportive policies, including infrastructure field, project financing methods for, such as BOT, buyback, and so on. Fast process for investment licensing, special center for foreign investment services also, and also investors access to foreign exchange for capital transfer purposes. Regarding economic advantages, we have we are the 18th largest economy in the world by purchasing power parity, PPT I mean, and resource-rich economy, labor-rich economy, and also young and educated population, large domestic market, and the sixth one is the Middle East market is a prime market opportunity for Iran's non-oil exports, and also an increasingly sophisticated infrastructure and human capital base providing the foundation for an emerging knowledge-based economy. Regarding tax holidays, as you know, foreign investors in Iran enjoy the same support and privileges that are offered to an Iranian investor. And also this means both Iranian and foreign investors pay the same amount of taxes. And also tax exemption and discounts are also equally granted to domestic and foreign investors. Regarding strategic position, my colleague gave it a good representation. And human capabilities also, as you see, we have lots of talented, committed, and educated youth that can work in different fields. Regarding investment sectors, we have oil and gas, industry, mine, and also transportation, agriculture, ICT, tourism, health. Regarding oil and gas, we have a very, very good projects, I mean refinery projects, ECP projects, which needs actually procurement, engineering procurement, and also financially needs that in each part of it, investors can invest in these sectors. And also in tourism, building hotels and everything that related to tourism, health, building hospitals and equipments. It is the wide sector that investors can invest in these areas. Iran foreign direct assets, as you see in 2006 to 2014, we have an increase actually. And foreign investors can invest in different, this graph shows the volume of foreign investment in Iran during 2002 to 2014. As we see after JCPOA sign, we have positive impacts. One of them is actually the repatriation of frozen assets and increase in trade balance by USD 916 million, which is very significant actually. Iran's economic outlook based on IMF is, as you see in this slide, we have it is predicted a surplus in 2017, and also growth in mainly driven by higher hydrocarbon production. GDP actually growth reaches to 4.2 in 2016 and 4.6 in 2017. And also economic growth will be 4% in 2000 and 3.7 in 2017 based on IMF reports. As you see, this graph shows the average of real GDP of countries in the region from 1998 to 2007, and the trends of real GDP changes from 2007 to 2015, and one more thing that I can add to my speech is establishment of foreign banks in Iran. It is possible for banks to have branches and representative offices in Iran, and there is such an opportunity. Foreign banks, in order to establish representative offices in Iran, should have at least 5 years experience. Their financial performance of banks should indicate profit, and also it needs to allocate 5 million, at least equal to 5 million euro, which will be deposited with CBI before issuing establishment permits. And also foreign branches established in Iran are obliged to work under the laws and regulations of CBI. Practical suggestions. If I want to have some offers for working in Iran, the financing projects and financially it can be done investing in different sectors, as I told you, establishing branches in free trade zones or other parts of the country, and also offering training courses in the field of banking and finance, because we were for 10 years under sanction. So we have the infrastructures and technology, but it can be improved. So there are so many opportunities in this regard. And also issuing credit cards, international credit cards, I mean, and debit cards, credit cards, which we are in need actually in Iran, and we are negotiating with some banks to be able to issue credit cards by our banks like that, and also offering software solutions for banking operations are some suggestions that can be done. Thank you very much for your listening.
Well, thank you very much. Certainly the banking issue is one of the central issues which we should also discuss afterwards. But let me first give Marek the floor, and then we open the floor to the general debate. Please, Marek.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My presentation, I think, will be very much complementary to the two previous presentation, and going more or less in the same direction in terms of conclusions. Okay, let's start from some basic fact sheets. Iran is the 18th largest economy in the world. In PPP, current international dollar terms, it's close to $1.4 trillion. Just behind Canada, Spain, and Turkey. It accounts for 1.2% of world GDP. It belongs to upper middle income class of countries. Its GDP per capita in PPP terms was in 2015 more than $17,000. So we can say that this is very similar in terms of size and development level to its western neighbor, Turkey. But there are huge differences in terms of sectoral structure of the economy, economic system, and degree of integration with the world economy. Okay, and major economy policy challenges, which I would like shortly discuss, they relate to GDP stagnation in 2015, still relatively high inflation, fiscal and quasi-fiscal imbalances, legacy of administrative price control, energy and other subsidies, multiple exchange rates, and then also a huge problem of integration into the world economy, insufficient external openness, and but this is the problem going much more to the past, beyond the period of sanctions. This is actually legacy of over 60 years of import substitution, inward development oriented strategies. This is GDP growth statistics. We see that up to 2007, Iran enjoyed, like many other countries, emerging market economies, period of fast growth, golden era of economic growth. Then it was hit by 2008 global crisis, decline of oil prices, which lasted around 1 year. So then it recovered, but then two factors had very negative impact, tightening of sanction, but perhaps even more importantly, the domestic policy response to sanctions, which was very much in line what economic literature describes in case of Latin America of 1980s heterodox economic policy, meaning responding to external shock by expansive monetary and fiscal policy, tighter price control, exchange rate controls, this brought negative effect. We see GDP decline. Then the new government changed economic policy. It gave positive impact, but then economy of Iran was hit again by declining oil prices from the second half of 2014. One may say that still situation looks better than in many other exporting, oil producing countries. Let's mention Russia, let's mention Azerbaijan, Nigeria, I'm not saying about Venezuela, but of course in a country with still growing population like Iran, the declining GDP growth it's a matter of concern. We hear that forecasts are positive, but I will come back to this, are not unconditional, this positive. They very much depends on economic policy. I mentioned this so-called heterodox response, and we see not only in terms of GDP decline, but also increase of inflation. 2012, especially, it was peak. Then inflation started to go down, and we see here monetary policy staying behind this, money and credit growth. We see that this period of this, I would say, monetary expansion was marked by deep negative real interest rates. Then it changed. So the effect is the declining rate of money supply of central bank, but still a quite high rate of growing of broad money, which indicates to remonetization, increasing domestic money demand, what is the generally positive thing. When we look for external balances, for a long time Iran enjoyed very high current account surplus, like other oil hydrocarbon producing countries. In 2015, this diminished, 14-15 diminished significantly, but it's still not matter of concern. This is still positive, and if foreign investment starting coming to the country, even a small negative current account balance would not be the problem. Also, in terms of international reserves, if I am not wrong, Iran now has gross and net, actually, reserves close to 130 billions of US dollars, which is, I think, above two years amount of imports. So basically, we may say that external accounts look safe, and they do not pose any important challenge. Okay. Fiscal situation. It deteriorated as oil price decline, but still it's not so bad in some other countries which were hit by declining oil prices. And more importantly, there is enough room for eliminating fiscal deficit. Both on expenditure side by further cutting subsidies, and revenue side by developing non-oil related tax sources, which we see that generally, even by emerging market standards, the level of government revenue, this general government, is relatively low, so there basically there is the room for some increase of taxation, and also is definitely room for decreasing expenditures, largely subsidies. So, and public debt is, I think, in the range of 13 or 15% of GDP. Gross debt, net debt is, including some reserves, is close to zero. So basically, again, at the moment, fiscal situation is not worrying, but it should be matter of careful policy, especially from the point of view of further fighting inflation. We see here the major fiscal policy factors. This is the problem of energy prices, and problem which is common to the entire MENA region. We see that historically it was domestic prices, they were very low, especially in case of diesel. Now this gap is closing due to both increase of the domestic prices, retail prices, but also declining the market prices, the declining oil and oil products market. But still it's long way to go to normalize market. This is also referring to previous speakers. This is also matter of energy efficiency and restructuring of the economy. So this is not only fiscal problem. This is much broader problem, like, again, in all other countries of the region, which are not only in region, because we have also some countries of former Soviet Union, for example, which to smaller extent, but they have the same problem. Now about external integration. This, I think, is the biggest challenge faced by government of Iran. First, it was mentioned about desire to join the WTO. Actually, Iran is, after Russia accession 2011, 2012, it's the largest economy remaining outside the WTO. And actually, we don't have so many economies which are now outside the WTO. So this is a major problem. And also, Iran doesn't participate in too many free trade or agreements. So it's basically outside the system. And what I would say worse, it's the high level of tariff and also very high non-tariff rates. I managed to find in a UNCTAD database the last figures for 2012, and they indicate that Iran level is absolutely the highest among the large and medium-sized emerging markets. So it's even if decreased recently, it's still a long way to go. So this is in case of manufactured goods. So this is a very serious challenge, and this is effectively applied the same picture. So basically, it's here necessity to start from unilateral trade liberalization and parallelly go to intensify WTO accession talks. And the next problem, which is still lack of currency convertibility, at least in terms of current account transaction. There is dual or multiple exchange rate. The unofficial or parallel market premium decreased somewhat, but still is in place. And actually, if we look for international reserves, for current accounts, there is no any kind of justification to continue this policy from the point of view of external controlling external balance. So this is, of course, eliminating this gap has some redistribution effect, domestic redistribution effect, and has some quasi-fiscal effects, but it should be done because this is the major problem for both for domestic and the foreign businesses. And then it's also what still, I think, long way to go to open country to foreign investment and also integrate financial sector and develop financial sector, integrate into international markets. So here we saw from first presentation that financial intermediation is 2% of GDP. This is a relatively small figure. Country of this size and this level of development should be more developed financial sector and better integrated with the rest of the world. Business climate. Here is also a lot of work to do. According to World Bank Doing Business, Iran has 118th rank out of 889 countries, and the worst notes relate to protecting minority investors, paying taxes, trading across borders. So this is more or less compatible with this previous table about tariffs, and resolving insolvency. Here there are the worst note which in this composite index. Then when we look at Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Iran occupies 130th rank out of 167th, which is pretty bad. And a bit better picture is in the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index. Here Iran is in the mid of the rank, 74th out of 130. So generally, this these ratings tell us that this is still excessive administrative regulation and political interference in business activity, which should be overcome. And finally, about factors which will determine economic prospects of the country. First of them is which put negative impact in the last 2 years. There are oil prices. They shouldn't, probably further, will not further decline, but unlikely they will come to the previous level. Nobody knows what will happen, but economic scenarios should not be built on some too optimistic assumptions. So I think that realistic assumption is continuation or more or less current level of oil prices. Easing economic sanctions is still untapped potential, and here I think this will help Iranian economy to overcome these consequences of sanction, consequences of lower oil prices. Then is prudent macroeconomic policies. We saw in the previous picture that changing by new government macroeconomic policies in 2013-14, even before easing sanction, brought a huge change in growth prospect and in terms of growth. So still is here, I think it's quite a lot of things to do, which I mentioned. Improving domestic business climate, trade liberalization, WTO accession, openness to FDI, and last but not least, there is a geopolitical factor. It's not my area of expertise, but it's obviously that this Iran is located at the center of quite turbulent region with high security risk. Of course, the situation depends on many players, but Iran is also quite important regional player and can contribute to easing this situation, which can offer a huge peace dividend and economic dividend of easing this tension and rebuilding regional cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we can now open the floor for discussion and for comments. But let me perhaps start with one question to you, Sarah, on the banking, but perhaps also the ambassador. I mean, I think one issue is, of course, and I think all presentations made that very clear, is banking activities and the access to banking activities. And of course, we've heard now that. And I think it's very closely linked, and I think that's quite obvious, to the geopolitical tensions and the view of some major countries, including the United States, to all of this. Now, I think one critical question is how far you can go in convincing sort of third parties about the quality of the supervision, the transparency, because you said very clearly that all banks fulfill anti-terrorist regulation, anti-money laundering regulations, and so on. Now, I think it's very important to be extremely transparent about this and to show that this is actually the case. And so we heard also from Marek that Iran still overall doesn't perform super well in terms of transparency indicators by, I don't know, was it the World Bank transparency indicator or Transparency International? So I think there is a real issue here beyond the geopolitical debate, which of course is difficult to solve other than at a geopolitical level. But I think on a banking level, what would help, to my mind, is to be extremely transparent. And I was just wondering whether you could elaborate a little bit more on, what are the transparency regulations in terms of, let's say, accounting, in terms of auditing, in terms of publishing accounts, in terms of central bank transparency in the supervision work, and so on. Thank you.
Actually, as I told you, CBI has supervisory regulations, and which all the banks should obey these regulations. What is the main problem is that the European banks, I have to say, they do not know the regulations and the systems we have so many systems, technological systems, that, for example, withdrawal of accounts. If a person wants to withdraw accounts from our accounts more than, for example, $5,000 on a day, it is an alarm for the system, and it should be controlled. These are these are all controls. And for example, if we want to have a, for example, we have an importer, and they want to even we check the vessel that carry the cargo, the name of vessel. It will be checked in the system, OFAC system, OFAC list, and so on. The the SDN list, whether the parties involved in a transaction are at that list or not, because this is dangerous for our banks. We don't want to be under sanction again. This is clear. So we have so many actually provisionary systems, and CBI are attempting to expand it. And this is their job that they are doing with European countries and European banks to satisfy their needs and meet their needs for this case.
Thank you very much for the pertinent question. I would like to add to what my colleague said. First of all, it's a matter of fact that we've been away for a while from the international banking system. Our banks have been away. It's a reality. And we need to be able to connect and to learn. I mean, that can be undertaken through engagement. So if engagement is not allowed, then either side is not in a good position to achieve what we have in mind, the target, I mean. So that might take time, but our central bank authorities and also other Iranian banks are quite proactive in approaching their partners in the international banking system in order to offset what we lag behind. Secondly, there have been already moves by the Iranian government in the case of money laundering regulations and also financing for terrorism. We have already approached FATF, which is an important international institution in this regard. And now lines of connection and engagement have been established with the Secretariat of the FATF. Delegations have been exchanged, and information has been provided to the FATF Secretariat, including, for example, the law on fighting financing for terrorism, which has been already adopted by the Iranian parliament. It was forwarded by the government and adopted by the Iranian parliament. So it's in place. It might be lack of information due to disconnection. So we need to provide lots of information to such institutions, but at the same time, through engagement, we need to learn. After all, we are a major part of the international fight against terrorism, and fighting financing for terrorism is a very important vehicle in that regard. So we are very serious on that. Thank you.
Thank you. You wanted to remark?
Sure. I want to talk about that because I guess I've been talk with the banking people, not as a banker, but as a business or representing business in Iran. Let's establish such a system. Then I sit and think, well, the business with Iran is just the peanuts. Who really want to go that great lengths to establish that? Sure. Okay, so I'm just trying to really picture what the problem is that can be answered and addressed properly. So I don't have the incentive to go and establish the system, then ask OFAC if it's okay or not, because it's just too many trouble. I mean, I'm constantly intermingled with all the U.S. financial institutions, and there is a customer asking me, just don't get involved with U.S. It's not going to work. I mean, it takes a lot of effort. So what happens is that, as my colleague mentioned, prime banks don't go for it. It's just too much trouble. Other banks say, well, if the prime banks don't go, okay, why should we? If they go, then we will follow. And so this is the picture. They don't ask, they don't get the answer. So US says, well, that's not my problem. They start saying, well, there are geopolitical issues, which is not that. There is no transparency issue. I have been in talk with the central bank representative present, and people from the European Bank said, we have got the best cooperation that we could get. And I offer to you, for anyone who has any question, to come to Iran and get in touch with the CBI people, they will get the answer. As she very clearly said, we are in touch. We are in touch with the international systems. There are very software and hardware there to make sure that there is no violation of that because of our own transactions. Okay. So this is the situation. Now, I want to go to that secondary sanctions of U.S. and I want to tell you something that in Mark's presentation was and that was openness and integrity to the world economy. Well, this takes two to tango. I mean, it's not that if I want to dance, I can dance by myself. I need someone else from the other side, right? So if I am trying and I don't see any response from there, they say, oh, it's too much trouble to work with you. So that's the problem. And why is that problem there? That secondary sanction, that I should put it like this. US says, you either work with me or with Iran. This is simple as that. This was not accepted by Europeans long ago. It refers back to the contract that started with Conoco with Iran, and they imposed sanction on Conoco, so they withdraw from the contract, then Total came in and took that. So they started imposing sanctions on European companies, and Europe resisted that and they stood against it. What happened was that in this new round of sanctions, because they were able to get the UN sanctions there, so they were able to get Europeans' support for that. So what's happening now? It's that US is sanctioning a European bank. Well, the money goes to the to the US government. So Europeans are letting another government, whoever that is, to punish their company. And this is something to think about. It's not a political issue. I think it's a very economical issue that we should not let any country to create trade hindrance for all the reasons that you know. That we need to enhance, we need to remove all the trade barriers. We should not create those. And this is the most fundamental issue that we need to address. That why is this legitimate in the first place? That any country to tell the other countries that you either work with me or the other. I think this is the fundamental issue. And that was the mindset for the banking. Sorry that it took a little bit long, but because there were so many talks.
I think it was a good and interesting clarification. I think many people certainly understand what you just said. I think I was making a much simpler point. My point was much more simple, and I think the big point you make, I think, is something that one has to somehow address, and it's something that is not easy to address.
No.
It's not easy to address at all, including for European policymakers. But I think the simple point I wanted to make is the more Iran can show that it is transparent, it is abiding by the rules, it is doing the accounting according to international standards, and so on and so forth. The more you are transparent, the stronger your case will be out there. That was the simple point I wanted to make, which and frankly I'm not in a position to evaluate how far you are on that transparency front, and that's why I really asked it as a question.
Well, my
so
simple
how
answer-
far are you, and
Okay.
how far?
My
further
simple
can you
answer
go?
for that is that for whoever has asked from us, we are as clear as it can be. No doubt about it. I mean, CBI is ready to give, but if nobody asks, what do you expect?
So let me collect a few questions and then also get some other panelists to comment. So I have Georg Zachmann, I have you, the gentleman in the back, and there was a question here also. Okay, so and you. Okay, so Georg. You.
Georg Zachmann from Bruegel. I have a question on the larger economic strategy of Iran in the longer term, because we have seen now in Saudi Arabia that due to the high oil prices in the past, a strong focus on oil. Now they are thinking again and wondering whether it would be necessary to, in the long term, kind of get rid of the oil addiction. And now Iran is in a much better position in the sense at this very moment, because the oil addiction is not yet that big. Iran, as I understand, doesn't have a very big sovereign wealth fund, and I also would be interested to understand a bit better to which degree you're planning to think about sterilizing the windfall from the oil income that will be coming into the country, and to which degree you think about managing to not get quickly addicted to oil exports, which would then destroy all the other economic potential that your country might have.
We collect. Yeah. Can you take? Can you take notes and? But we collect a few questions,
yes,
and so and then please take notes that we don't.
Make it really small, because it was a big question.
It's a big question, but we still collect. So then the gentleman here, yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Kentaro Kato from Unity, New European Business Confederation. I remember it was a slide of Mr. Sherif that reminded us growing Iranian awareness of environmentally friendly economy. It seems a bit controversial for me to being environmental friendly at the same time being the major oil and gas exporter. So I'd like to have the opinion of panelists to how to mediate these two different elements. Thank you very much.
Okay. There was the gentleman there in the back. Oh, sorry, in the back, and then you come.
Joseph Giuliani from Washington Jefferson College in the United States. Well, you mentioned already, Mr. Sharif mentioned the U.S. sanctions still remain in place, and many European companies fear to enter Iran for that matter. But how are the efforts taken to remove those secondary sanctions from the U.S.? And if in the face of doomsday of Donald Trump's presidency, how do you make the future of the JCPOA?
Okay, please.
It's Enrico Ponzone from EU-Iran. I understand there's a trickle of banks in Europe that have started to resume doing business with Iran, and there's still very, very few of them. But there's a catch to this perception, because in reality, these banks are transacting only on the basis of goods exchanged and not services. And I would like to know if there is evidence that some banks are also transacting services, and how long do you think the process of sort of getting to the service bit will also take? Thank you.
Okay, that's the lady in the back there, and then.
So Thank you very much. My name is Teona Valdelashvili. I'm from Georgia, and I work in the Bruegel Martin Center for European Studies. Thank you very much for the event and for the presentation. So my question is, to what degree is Iran interested to transfer its energy to the Western markets? And if it's so, through which routes? If Georgia can be also, let's say, considered? And if Iran is planning to join the TANAP project, Trans-Anatolian Pipeline, and maybe what are the challenges and opportunities in this regard? Thank you.
So thank you. I mean, we will use that question as a hook for the next panel, because in the next panel we discuss energy matters, because it was a very specific question on energy pipelines. So if you don't mind, we answer that question in the second panel, but we took note of it. And then please, I think you had, yes.
I was the first.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry if I missed up the order.
So. ULB and Sorbonne. So for go very quick and very simple, I need just mention President Rouhani, who himself, he acknowledged the problem, all kind of problem of business, bank, or diplomacy. We are more coming from the bad governance of his previous government, Mr. Ahmadinejad. And whatever happened now is not the result of sanctions only, it's also become from the bad governance in Iran. So coming to my question, what is your plan for the growth of economic of Iran? You are talking about 8% of growth. From where come this money? Second question about the secondary sanction is lifted, but the primary sanction is there. What you will be, if you will be, we can say, able to eradicate the reason of the primary sanction. This is, I think, the very important information we need to know about you before coming to business. And on this, what you are giving as promise, the private sector, who actually you are saying you are very proud of this private sector, what is your guarantee the Revolutionary Guard in Iran in any points will not interfere on the collaboration you propose to EU economy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have a fair amount of questions that are all very pertinent, very good. So I mean, I think we have several people who may want to inject, but perhaps you want to start, Ambassador?
Thank you very much. I'm not an economist, but I have some ideas to share with you from the maybe political side mostly. Concerning our addiction or dependency on oil revenues, I think already Iran is in a good position, almost in a good position, because our oil dependency is 30%. And you can compare it to countries like Iraq, where they have 90% of dependency, in Saudi Arabia 70% as far as I know, Algeria 90%, around 90%. So it's a diverse economy already. We have diversified our economy, and I think, but we need to make further efforts to even diminish this percentage, which is not good for us in our scale. There was a good question concerning the possible paradox from concerning our colleague here, the paradox between how we want to protect the environment by a country which is a fossil fuel producer, right? That was the question. Yes. And I think that's a pertinent question, and it goes to oil, fossil fuel producing countries. There are issues of fundamental importance concerning this question. What we've done in Iran is, for example, for our internal consumption, we have already moved from oil to gas. So internally, we have tried to act sustainably, and this has helped us a lot to mitigate the CO2 emissions, but we are not there yet. That is why the government, in particular the Department of Environment of the country, which is headed by Vice President, there are plans, serious plans to go with renewable energies, but most important even than renewable energies is energy efficiency. We are not good at that. I don't want to exaggerate. And we need to move a lot, but this is a cheaper portfolio than renewable energies for us if we want to rely on our own resources. That would be much easier for us to invest. But for renewable energies, we need foreign investment because it's a expensive kind of a installment, and we need to achieve that. And already we have plenty of delegations to Iran by foreign companies proposing investment in renewable energies because we have plenty of resources. We have lots of sunshine, very in Iran, and also wind energy, and in some areas of Iran, even thermal energy is something that we can invest. It's a good question. It's a matter of sustainability and achieving sustainable development. And that is the goal of the government. And internationally, we have joined already the commitments that we have made to the international community concerning our cap on CO2 emissions, mitigating CO2 emissions. We have already handed over that commitment to the Secretariat of the United Nations Climate Change Framework Convention, which is 12% mitigation of CO2 emissions, and the target is 2030. That is our commitment, and I'm sure that we can achieve that level, but we need to make further efforts. Let me also respond to the last question by our distinguished friend here. I think in my presentation I alluded to the determination of the government to reform the government companies, government-owned companies, and I think that is my answer to your very last question, and I hope that we can achieve, and according to my colleague from the Chamber of Commerce, strengthening the private sector is something that is on the agenda of President Rouhani very much, and I hope that we can achieve it in the near future. That again might be achieved through further engagement of our private sector companies with their counterparts in Europe and elsewhere. I'll leave the rest for my colleagues.
Okay, who among the colleagues would like to?
There was a question regarding.
Please use the microphone.
Okay. There was a question regarding technical services. I think services. As you asked,
in banking,
yes.
yeah? Services in banking and not just goods. So if
Yes,
I
yes. No,
or
it is not only, it is not for goods, but services also. As I told, there are EPC projects for engineering, we have services, and also regarding technical and engineering services, it's okay. We have, there's no problem for that. It's not only for goods.
Well, yeah, clarify.
Sorry, I need to clarify. What banks do today is basically just facilitate payments.
Yes.
So just pure money transfers. At the moment, my understanding is that the few banks that has resumed transacting with Iran only allow these transactions to be on the basis of an exchange of goods and not services. So if a lawyer, for example, wants to be paid by an Iranian client, it cannot do that today. And an exception has been made for SWIFT, one of Belgium's most famous companies, because it's a service provider, and an exception had to be made for them to receive payments from Iran. So I just wanted to focus on this. This is a catch, really.
This is a problem that I explained about. This is related to correspondent bankings. There is no problem on our side. We can send the money for you. But the banks, your banks, does not accept the payments. This is the reason. For example, they have to clarify that it is for goods, for invoice number so and so, and invoice date so and so. This is the reason for that. This is not. They have to the correspondent banking and European banks problem that they do not want to accept these transactions.
But can I ask a bit further? I mean, so this question was about goods and services, but it's even services would still be just a payment function. So are European banks able, and are they actually lending? I mean, so providing credit or supporting FDI operations in Iran? Is that also limited, or is that possible?
You know, before JCPOA signing, JCPOA, there was a problem because of there was a limitations in banking transactions for Iran, which depends only to goods and humanitarian goods and, for example, wheat and soda corns and like that, and also medicine. But after it, these sanctions also have to be removed. But actually, this is the reason, this is the banks, European banks, that do not accept these payments.
Right, okay. Yeah, well,
Sorry, I forgot again, there was two questions by our friend here. And the question was, how do you get money for 8% economic growth rate, right? Sorry, I forgot to reply to that. First of all, as I said in my statement, that was the target. That was the target for the next 5-year development plan. During the next 5 years, starting with 2017, that is our target, which is ambitious, but good ambitious, not negative ambitious. Internal resources do not suffice. And that is why in my statement I said Iran is in need of 30 to 50 billion US dollars annual foreign investment in Iran in order to achieve the target. We might not achieve the target exactly, but this is where we are heading. And I think this is a wise kind of setting a target, and then you proactively follow it. That's all. Thank you.
Marek, did you want to say anything, add anything?
Well, maybe one very general remark based on a question. I am fully aware that sanctions are only partially lifted, and this is still a long way to go to eliminate them completely. And I think here colleagues describe quite professionally in details what kind of problems remain. But I would like to reinforce once again, which I think was to be one of the message of my presentation, that apart from sanctions, apart from issues which require bilateral, multilateral cooperation, because I agree, for example, accession to WTO, it depends very much on Iran, but also depends on all other partners, for example, to go ahead. But still, I think it's a large room for domestic economic policy improvement and governance, what you mentioned very correctly, because there are issues not only related strictly to, I would say, macroeconomic policy or business regulation, but this is also a question of politicization of economic management and etc. So, Iran experience in this respect is not unique. It's well to remind situation of former communist countries. It's very much similar situation in Arab countries. It was also legacy and not necessarily fully overcome in Latin America. It's very much Chinese problem also, in spite of all success story, but still excessive regulation, excessive political interference. And I think that the experience of 2014 illustrates us very well that still sanctions were in place. Oil prices started to decline at the end of the year, but Iran could record substantial economic growth, largely to the change of domestic economic policy by new government. And I think that this is and such further change I try to present in my presentation what are the potential area of improvement, may also help in easing various external restriction and sanctions. Thank you very much.
You have a one minute.
Yes, thank you very much. Although I am the next speaker and I'm going to talk to you a lot. But just some point that I want to mention, especially regarding the last presentation that Mr. Daudarsky, that he told us. The first one is about the tariff, that, you know, in Iran nowadays we don't have any non-tariff barriers. Only if we have, it's about the environmental non-tariff barriers. None of them is available. About the tariff, I'm sure that we reduce it, and we are the member of some regional cooperation agreements such as ECO, that we reduce sharply our tariff for them, and in other multilateral, you know, agreements such as Shanghai Cooperation, we are going to join, and the same facility that we are going to offer them. About the exchange rate, that on the government's plan, that government is committed to have a one exchange rate, and by the end of this Iranian year, it means by the March. So it's on the process, and government committed, and central bank is going to implement that one. About the primary sanction of the U.S., we should ask from the U.S. when they are going to remove that one, and I think it's very essential for them. Otherwise, we know that this primary sanction only for the U.S. citizen, not any other country included that one. And about the environmental problem, that some of the questions that rise it, that I think clearly mentioned that if we have any problem, we need some new technology, and we are requesting the Western country, Western companies to help us if we have any that help from that to remove that obstacle and environmental pollution. And about the last one for the transparency, we are in touch with the Denmark government and ombudsman, as Denmark is the first in transparent in the world, and we are asking them to help us to improving any mechanism, anything that they can provide us, and soon I hope to be better position in the world transparency as we can see in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Farhad, you have the last word, but really...
I try to cover what's left. I start from the question there about oil. Well, our plan is that, as I mentioned, to try to develop the industry that supports the oil industry. And we see that as the driving engine for the economy. So this is the way of our thinking, that when you develop a field, try to develop some companies that work. So it's been thought about in the Iranian oil contracts that when you we need foreign experience there, but we want to have Iranian companies to get involved there, and Iranian companies making parts, and so this is the way that we are looking at it, to make the oil industry, develop the industry in the country. So that's what we think about that. Going back to the well, the environment and oil is okay. You got the answer. Okay. About future of JCPOA and second sanctions, what I want to tell you is that Iran has made its decision. There is no returning from that. We have made some irreversible things. We have delivered or enriched uranium. We have filled out the reactor. So there is no coming back from our side. We are pleased that we have indicate that we have been the trustworthy partner there. The doubts were irrelevant, I guess. And so we have achieved what we wanted to achieve in the world scale. About Americans, I don't know. As he correctly mentioned, ask them. But what's really important is that what you think, what will be your stand there? What are you going to do? Because the way I see it is that in the region that we are there are dark forces trying and calling for death and destruction. And we are trying to make development. And by developing, create a new environment that people can prosper there. And this is your choice to make, I think. About points that was raised here, it's that. Okay. Okay.
One more, and sorry.
Okay, one more. Okay. Well, my friend here mentioned about IRGC and many other things that you can think. The way I look at it is that when you go to any country, there are some risks. And we will probably need some companies to take that risk and issue some insurance. Well, if I want to study it as an insurance company, I will look at, okay, how many intervention of SEPA or IRGC were there, what was the consequential losses, then I will issue something for you. I mean, I don't see it as a, well, I translate it to some sort of economic and insurance policy that when you come, then you get some insurance. And when you look at the FIPA investment, we have Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Agency. It's called FIPA. It tells you if you go through this and get license for your investment, we will protect it. The government is obliged to protect your investment. So this is pretty high. And about primary sanctions, nothing that I can say. And about the growth targets, these are just targets, and that's been made that encourage people to think about how to achieve that. Sorry about that.
Great. Thank you very much. We ran a little bit over time, and I apologize for that. So we resume at 11:45. So we have a little bit of a shorter, so perhaps 20 minutes maximum coffee break. So please be on time when you come back. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
I hope I tried to be
very good. It was very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.